Right. Very good morning, everybody. Are we live? Let me just check if we are live before I kickstart the lesson. Right. I guess we're live. Very good morning. Very good morning. Very good morning. Welcome to the lesson for today. Today, as well, we are here for some good Parajumbles practice. I've curated a set of questions that are all previous year questions. Should be a nice practice. Um, But like always, before we begin with the lesson, allow me to give you, a small introduction of the Unacademy platform, right? Just give me a moment. Yeah. So Unacademy is perhaps India's largest learning platform today when it comes to preparing for any and every competitive exam, right? You're here to learn more about management exams, to learn how to crack management exams like CAT, GMAT, NMAT, ZAT, and the likes. I am Prankur Arora. I'll be your instructor on this journey of learning. I'll take you through various concepts pertaining to verbal as well as reading comprehension. I've been in the learning industry for the past couple of years, where I've even had the opportunity to consult with many different organizations, corporate level, uh, organizations such as Becton Dickinson, Marico, Interglobe, FMC Corp, ITC. These are some of the organizations that I've worked with. I'm also a published author. I wrote this book called It's Not Funny. The book was launched by Pepperscript a couple of years back, and it's a work of fiction, satirical fiction. It was even widely appreciated by the likes of Biswapati Sarkar and Papa CJ. Right, so be sure to check it out. Plus, I hold advanced certifications in facilitation from an American organization called Leadership Management International. Right? LMI is perhaps the world's largest organization when it comes to working in the space of transformational leadership. And I run a production house on the side called Tamasha Entertainment, where we curate film and theatrical experiences. So that's pretty much about me. Welcome aboard this journey of learning. Um, So there are quite a lot of features that add to the Unacademy pedagogy, right? Some of those features include giving you access to daily live classes, where all interaction between the learners and the educator happens in real time. Live tests and quizzes where we help you evaluate your performance and take stock of where you are in your learning journey, right? So if you appear for a test or a quiz, the idea is it's on the same pattern as the exam that you're preparing for. Plus you'll develop perspective about where you're going right and what you're doing wrong, right? We'll give you insights and reports, such as how much time you're spending on every question, right? What are your test scores, section wise or topic wise. All that will help us develop perspective and tweak our learning journey if need be. Plus all the courses on the platform are pretty much structured. They are in line with the exam syllabus that you're preparing for. They're audited by subject matter experts, right? Also, with one subscription to the platform, you get access to anything and everything on the platform. So that's a really cool thing. You can watch live classes, you can attend live classes, you can watch the recordings of any live class that you want to. Plus, there's so many educators on the platform, and all of them are highly credible people who've successfully mentored aspirants into various top tier business schools. You name it, they've cracked it, be it IIMs, ISBs, XLRIs, MDIs. Uh, and as I've been saying, you can experience all these live classes on the platform for free before deciding whether you want to, you know, subscribe and avail additional key benefits or not. New courses, new batches, they keep on going live on the platform. Plus, language is never a barrier. We've got educators who teach in vernacular languages as well, right? If you're not as comfortable in English, I'm pretty sure you can find an educator who will teach in a regional language that you were brought upon. Also, you design your own schedule, right? That's a really really cool thing. You design your own schedule, you decide what are the kind of courses you want to enroll into, who are the educators you want to be learning from, right? All that ownership is on you. uh, Plus, as I said, all interaction happens in real time. Plus all question answers, they're conducted in the format of live polls on the platform, right? So you participate in those live polls and you compete for a place on the leaderboard that is visible to anybody and everybody on the platform. um, Also, the idea is that you'll see I'll be scribbling a lot of stuff on the class notes. So all these class notes with the educator annotations, they're made available to you once you subscribe to the platform. Yes. So these are the various subscription models that are available, right? And you can clearly see that as the time period of the subscription goes up, the cost of the subscription per month goes down dramatically, right? So I would recommend that you opt in for a longer learning journey. But regardless of the learning journey that you go for, if you use my name Prankur, you get an extra 10% off on anything that any subscription that you want to opt for. Having said that, let's begin with the lesson for the day. This is the first Parajumbles question. Okay, Anushka says option 2. No. Is anybody else coming up with an answer? Shubhecha says 2 as well. Okay, so let's look at all the sentences once. Hopelessness, exhaustion, and dwindling control over national economic life are the themes of politics all over the world. As a result, sentence B, as a result, states have been forced to shed social commitments in order to reinvent themselves as custodians of the market. As a result of what? Right? This is drastically, what has drastically? These are the tricks to solving this question. Rohit says 1. Okay. What has drastically diminished? This has drastically diminished national political authority in both real and symbolic ways. The destruction of state authority over capital has been the clear cut objective of the financial revolution that defines our present era. Right? So, one thing that Anushka and Subesha got right was that DB is a clear link today. B has to follow C. As a result of what? As a result of the destruction of state authority over capital has this has been the clear-cut objective of the financial revolution that defines our present era. B follows D. As a result, states have been forced to shed social commitments in order to reinvent themselves as custodians of the market. Jigisha says B as well. Okay. So, guys, understand um, that B states that states have been forced to shed social commitments in order to protect the market. What is this the result of? The financial revolution mentioned in statement D is the only possible answer to this, right? That is, as a result of the financial revolution, states have been forced to reinvent themselves as custodians of the market. That is why B follows D, right? And the only options giving us that are options 2 and 3, right? Now, what we have to identify is where A and C fit in, right? What we have to identify is where A and C fit in, right? So, um, what is the link between A and C? Though A could result in C, right? We note that C starts with this, right? Whereas A talks of multiple themes: hopelessness, exhaustion, dwindling control, right? Could A be the result of C? Diminished political authority can result in hopelessness and exhaustion, though that is not necessarily in dwindling control over the national economic life that is mentioned in the paragraph, right? So CA is, it is possibility of something else that precedes C that explains the point about political authority losing control over national economic life, and that is what is happening. Yes, and that is what is happening with that is what is happening with sentence B, right? That is what is happening with sentence B, that it can precede C because it is establishing whatever C is talking about. So that is why DBCA will be the answer. The destruction of state authority over capital has been clear-cut objective of financial revolution that defines a present era. As a result, states have been forced to shed social commitments in order to reinvent themselves as custodians of the market. This has drastically diminished national political authority in both real and symbolic ways. Right? So we're establishing whatever C wants to tell us. Right? We're saying what states are doing and how it is affecting the national authority in real and symbolic ways. And then we end our passage talking about several themes on the same. That hopelessness, exhaustion, dwindling control over national life are the themes of politics all over the world. Alright, so the answer to this one is DBCA. Let's look at next question. The next question. Okay, so Becha says option 2. Alright, let's wait for others to respond before we delve into the explanation. Anushka says 1. Okay. So let's read all the sentences. As elephants trumpet, the high frequency vibrations of their massive vocal cords reach the ears of other elephants within a mile. Okay. This is especially useful in the jungle where dense vegetation rapidly degrades auditory information, though not seismic cues. Mhm. A two tiered communication model based on hearing and feeling provides an effective way of sending messages to nearby herd members as well as more distant uh, rival herds. Jigisha says option 1 as well. Okay. Remarkably, the low frequencies travel through the ground to be picked up by the extremely sensitive feet of elephants up to 6 miles away. Right. So what is this paragraph trying to tell us? This paragraph trying to is trying to tell us about two different modes of communication that elephants have based on vibrations. One is when they trumpet, the high frequency vibrations, and the second is the low frequency vibrations. High frequency reach the ears of other elephants, low frequency travel through the ground and they are picked up by the feet, right? And that is basically the idea, right? So ideally, the trick to figuring this out is when we look at sentence B. This is especially useful in the jungle where dense vegetation rapidly degrades auditory information, though not seismic cues. What is especially useful, right? A two-tiered communication is useful. The two-tiered model communication is useful, which is based on hearing and feeling and provides an effective way of sending messages to nearby herd members as well as more distant rival herds, right? So two-tiered communication is what this is what two-tiered communication is basically doing a callback to. So logically speaking, B has to follow C, right? And not happening here. It's the opposite order here. It is happening here and it is happening here, right? B is following C. Now we have to just figure out the placement for A and D. A and D also accompany one another, they are also linked. A talks about one high frequency vibration, B and D talks about low frequency vibration. So D has to follow A because remarkably is a transitionary term, right? Remarkably, low frequencies travel through this. First, we talked about high frequency, then we talked about low frequency. So, ADCB is a logically correct arrangement for these sentences. All right, let's move on to the next question now. Okay, Jigisha says option 2. All right. Shubecha says 4. Okay. So, we know from the options that the first sentence of the paragraph is likely to be either B or D, right? We only have these two options. Now, D makes a reference to the spectacular Perseid meteor shower, right? And to the swift turtle as well, right? What is swift turtle? That is not obvious from sentence D, right? That information is not given in sentence D. On the other hand, from sentence B, we can figure out and understand clearly what swift turtle is, right? So, paragraph B is likely to precede D, right? Because B is giving us that information, whereas D is not. Okay, Jikisha says option 3 now, Anushka says 4 as well. Okay. See, understand guys that D is giving us information about Perseid as well as Swift Turtle, but is not telling us what Swift Turtle is. Whereas option B, sentence B rather, not option B, sentence B is clearly telling us what Swift Turtle is. Right? It is clearly telling us what Swift Turtle refers to. We can understand Swift Turtle from reading sentence B that like any other comet, Swift Turtle follows a steep incline when compared to planets in the solar system, gathering a lot of speed as it dives down into the solar system to get close to the sun and out again. Right? So that is why in the paragraph B is likely to precede D, right? And then the link between sentences C and D is also clear, right? Both of them are about the comet being the cause of the meteor shower, right? The link between comet and meteor shower was discovered within 3 years of comet's discovery by Giovanni Schiaparelli in 1865. Spectacular meteor shower, Perseid meteor shower, that is witnessed every August, peaking in mid-August, is in fact created by the dust and debris left by swift turtle, right? Both of these are talking about the comet being the cause of the meteor shower. So it is clear that C follows D, right? C will follow D, and that leaves us with sentence A. Right now we can see that the sentence order CA will be awkward. And why will CA be awkward? Because C makes a reference to Giovanni Schiaparelli and his discovery, whereas A explains why we see the meteor shower every year despite the comet taking 133 years to pass by the earth. Right? Very different things the both of them are talking about. The order DA is more natural. D makes a reference to the shower being witnessed every August, and A explains why this is so. Right? Despite the comet taking 133 years to pass by the Earth, the shower happens every year as a result of the Earth moving through the trail of the comet's orbit. So DA are a more logical ring. DAC is a logical flow of ideas. And as I discussed earlier, B has to precede D. So the correct order is BDAC. The second option, as Rohit, uh, you know, it's elaborating on what Swift is, sir. Isn't B the continuation of D? B is not the continuation of D because see, D is mentioning Swift Turtle, but B is giving us the explanation for it. B is telling us what Swift Turtle is, and the paragraph hinges upon that. Does that make sense, Jigisha? See, D is referring to Swift Turtle, but before D refers to Swift Turtle, we need something in the paragraph that tells us what Swift Turtle is. Alright? Does that make sense? Okay, guys, do you have a doubt still, or can I move on to the next question now? Okay, I don't see anything on the chat. Maybe I should try and launch the video again. Maybe the chat is not loading and you guys are responding. Okay, I'll move on to the next question now. Anushka says option one. Okay. Rohit and Shubhecha believe it's going to be option one as well. All right. Just give me a moment. So, as you guys have guessed correctly, CB are a very strong link, right? After the dissolution of the Mongol Empire, a group of Muslim Tatars fleeing the Turco-Mongol ruler Tamerlane asked the Christian Grand Duke of Lithuania for asylum. Duke Vyatautas Vytautas welcomed them. In return, the Tatars provided their new country and later Poland with military assistance against Tamerlane. Right? So, Tatars asking the Lithuanian Grand Duke for asylum and his granting it, this is being talked about in CNB, and this is a very strong link. Right? So, good job on identifying that. Now, A is a very general statement on Tatars. Right? Tatar was common name of Turkic-speaking semi-nomadic people living on and around the immense steppes of Eurasian continent. Right. D, on the other hand, relates to the political developments discussed in CB. Right. John III Sobieski, the king of Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, might not have won the Battle of Vienna were it not for the help of country's Sunni Muslim Tatars. Right. This is what D is talking about, which is very, very different from sentence A. Now, the idea here is that if A were to be the first sentence, if A were to be the first sentence, then logically, rest of the paragraph, it should be kind of discussing the Tartars as a group in general terms, right? We start off by talking about who Tatar people are, then the entire paragraph should be delving upon that. However, that is not the case because BCD, the other three sentences, they kind of relate to how the Sunni Muslim Tatars they helped change the geopolitics of that region. Right? That is what all sentences CBD do. Right? They don't give us details of the life of Tatars. That is what the rest of the sentences are doing. Also, flow of ideas from A to C and D, it is not smooth at all. You talk about generally what the life of Tatars is like, and then you straight away start discussing the geopolitics. That does not make sense, right? So, the same falls for C. That if C were the first sentence of the paragraph, then A will be pushed to probably the third or the fourth in the order because C and B are linked, right? CB are a unit. So that does not kind of sound right either. The only possibility then is to have D as the starting sentence of the paragraph and not A. Option C 3 seems probable as well. Exactly. Right? Option 3 is the correct answer, Rohit, because A then follows immediately after D and CB follows this. Right? So DACB is the correct answer. We start off with D, we talk about this, then we talk about who tatters are, and then we discuss, this part. John 3 Sobieski, yeah, John 3 Sobieski, Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth might not have won the Battle of Vienna were it not for country's Sunni Muslim Tatars. You talk about Tatars, that was a common name for these people, and then you talk about CB, that after the dissolution, this is what happened, and then Duke welcomed them, right? So, this is the only viable answer option. Move on to the next question. Okay, Shubhecha says answer 4. Alright, let's wait for one or more answers. Rohit says 1. Alright. Okay, guys, understand. Let me quickly read the sentences out for you, and then I'll explain it. Maybe then it'll make more sense. The most contentious part of all this is the definition of justification, and there are several schools of thought on the subject. According to evidentialism, what makes a belief justified is the sense is the in this sense is the possession of evidence. A belief is justified to the extent that it fits a person's evidence. Different varieties of reliabilism suggest that either justification is not necessary for knowledge, provided um, it is a reliably produced true belief, or justification is required, but any reliable cognitive process is sufficient justification. Yet another school, infallibilism, holds that a belief must not only be true and justified, but that the justification of the belief must necessitate its truth, so that the justification for the belief must be infallible. Now, understand that all three, evidentialism, reliabilism, infallibilism, all three are talking about what? All three are talking about justification, right? At the same time, it is very, very evident that A has to be the opening sentence. It is the only statement that mentions that, there are several schools of thought on the definition of justification. And all the other three statements, they are different definitions of this very school of thought. We have evidentialism, we have reliabilism, we have infallibilism. All these three are definitions, right? And A is talking about their existing different definitions on the subject. Are you getting my point? A has to be the opening sentence. There are several schools of thought on the subject of definition of justification. One school of thought is evidentialism, second school of thought is reliabilism, third school of thought is infallibilism. Sentence 1 states part of all this. Exactly, it states part of all this, but that does not mean that, ideally speaking, you're right, this has to have a reference. We should ask part of what exactly. You're making sense here. We should have a target for this. What is this referring to? At the same time, there are passages that not, understand that sometimes a passage or paragraph presented to you is not a standalone paragraph. It could have a different beginning, it could have a different end, and this paragraph could fit in between, right? But regardless of where this paragraph is fitting, you have to figure out what is the logical arrangement for the sentences in that paragraph. It could be a concluding paragraph of an essay, it could be the opening paragraph or a study or a research, right? The paragraph could be a standalone paragraph as well. But like this one, it is not a standalone paragraph. There is a different reference point for it, but you still have to figure out the logical arrangement for all the sentences in this one, right? So we don't change the meaning of the paragraph just because we think that, all of this has to have a reference. But even if this had to have a reference, if you go by one, A becomes the conclusion, right? But A cannot be the conclusion. Then all of these होना चाहिए था ना, the most contentious part of all of these, not all of this. You getting my point? So that is why A, B, C, D is the answer to this one. Also, D has to come in last, because when we say yet another school, it cannot fall before B or C or anywhere else in the order. So that thing you got right. Probably the only contentious aspect for you was where should A come in. So A will be the opening and B, C, D follows suit. Next question. Okay. Option 4, according to Rohit. All right. Shubecha says 4 as well. Right. So you're very right. Comments have the potential to turn a news website into a democratic polyphony. It can become a site. What can become a site? News website can become a site. So C follows A. Right. It can become a site for multiple concurrent debates, for registering dissent, for pursuing an idea, and finally for building a polity of informed choices. Uh, but there is also a danger of it descending to cacophony. And then we talk about the danger, and D talks about the resolution. That the role of the moderators it is to retain the space for polyphony and reject voices. So A C B D is the correct answer. Okay. 1 and 4. So I think Shubecha has gotten it right. It is answer 4. Option 4 is the correct answer. E sets context exactly. E sets context that shrill alarm about the economic impact of inadequate monsoon had been sounded by the center as well as most of the states in July and August. The two here, divide between the two, right? A line of divide between the two refers to what? Refers to center as well as the states, right? And then we have BD as the link, that this is what central government does, and this is what state governments on the other hand do. And then A talks about that bone of contention, right? So ECBDA is the correct answer in that regard. Right, this is the last question for the day, guys. Okay, Shubhecha thinks it's C and Rohit thinks it's G. Alright. So ideally, the both of you have gotten one thing right, which is that 3 has to be the opening sentence of the paragraph. Why? Because all the other sentences have pronouns, and it's only sentence C that has a noun. So all this he, him, they are all referring to carton. So this has to be the opening sentence, that this book is a chock-a-block full of intrusive stories and practical advice describing carton's activities at Wingrisser. So this has to be opening sentence. And then we have where he assumed his first presidency, and then we have Linjeflug, and then we have Sass. So understand that this sentence itself is giving us the hint as to what sentences have to follow. So he describes his activity at Wingrisser, then Linjeflug, and then Sass. So he began at Wingrisser. At Linjeflug, he went 4 years later, and then at SAS he arrived at a time crisis. So 3412 in that regard would be the most viable uh, arrangement for this one, because this is the order in which he is describing his activities as well. All right, Shubecha. So it will be 3, 4, 1, 2, because this is the order in which he is mentioning it all. All right, so this was a big hint in the sentence. So Rohit has gotten this one right. 3, 4, 1, 2 is the most viable arrangement here. All right, guys, with this, we come to the end of the lesson for the day. Thank you so much for joining in. Hope the both of you had fun, and everybody else who's joined in. Hope you guys had fun. I had a blast teaching you all. I'll see you all again tomorrow morning. In the meantime, take care, stay safe, stay strong, stay mellow, right? And if you attend special classes, I'll be taking special class on the platform today at 1 p.m., where we'll be solving a lot many questions. We'll be taking RC, CR, SC, and Parajumbles as well. So it will be a mixed bag of questions. So, if available, you can attend that class as well on the platform. It's a free special class at 1 p.m. Right. So, see you guys. Thank